Hi, everybody. Want to go over a couple things we covered this past week in the principles of design and the videos we watched, some misconceptions and some things I may not have made as clear as possible. A lot of times when we talk about the general public, and I don't mean you as students individually, I mean the general population out there, especially in the United States, the picture we're looking at is what they expect. Painting of a nice farm scene or sometimes of people, sometimes not, like that or like this. And the expectations are that they have lots of detail in them and great colors. But let's look at this one. If we zoom in on this picture, we can see that it does not have a lot of detail. That's got just a bunch of marks that when we put them together, they look like a mountain scene. But there really aren't a lot of fine details in that. And that's something that some of you may not have uh, caught. I wanted to show you first this painting on the left by Mark Rothko. It's not his intent, it never has been his intent for that to be anything other than the colors and shapes you're looking at. There are not definitive shapes. There are soft lines, soft edges. They seem to melt together. Very large paintings at that. Um, that's his style. That's something that a great many people do not comprehend. And when they look at it, they go, what is it? And it's not supposed to be it. It's the painting. The painting is it. That goes along with our This Is Not a Pipe by Magritte. It is what it is and nothing beyond that. Let's look at our Ray Charles that we looked at. This on the left shows Dan Dunn getting ready to throw his handprint up, and on the right, the painting itself. It is representational to the extent that we can look at that and say, yeah, that's Ray Charles. Um, and I asked many of you if it had fine detail. A lot of you said, yeah, I don't think so. Let's look at some pictures of Ray Charles. This is a painting done by a man in France, and this is a drawing done by the same man. This is done in pencil, and the one on the right is done in paint. I think they have a great deal more detail than the picture on the right. You don't need to have those details to be able to see what's going on in the picture. And certainly, he made a big mess that we looked at when he turned it right side up. We go, oh, yeah, that's what that is. Um, Sometimes people look at pictures like this and are fascinated by the amount of detail involved in them. Um, this painting in particular, I think we can look at that, but that's not generally what you have to do to make art. And that's what I hope to show you. If we look at this and we are wowed simply by the technique, maybe we're missing something. We look at this picture from the OK Go video back a couple of weeks. The elements, the visual elements, are just tripods, backdrops, lighting equipment, a painter's palette, those things. When we put them together in the right way, which is what the principles of design are, we get a picture that looks like the guy on the right, here and here. Um, that's something that you should consider always, that, it's an illusion if we have an illusion that's as sharp as those Ray Charles portraits. That's still an illusion. It's not Ray Charles. The grouping on the left of those pieces are not the man in the picture. Let's go to balance now. One of the things we want to talk about first here is color and red. Red is what we call an attractive color. That is, it attracts our attention. Don't mean it's beautiful. It means it's going to overpower everything. That's something in the nature of people with normal color vision, that when you see red, your eye goes to that. In this case, it's used to balance this sculpture by Calder. Uh, in this case, a student wants us to look at his scarf in the photograph that he did. And let's look at that. If we look at it without the color, it's just not going to attract our attention as much as some other things in the picture. Here too, the car wash is a very, very bright red. Normally when we look at a photograph, we look at the people first, but you probably didn't notice them right away. What you look at is that bright, bright red car wash. You might have even have missed that there's a car in the photo because it is so powerful. It attracts our attention. Let's look at balance. Balance is the apparent distribution of weight in a picture. Of course, in a 2D picture, that is also an illusion. If we look at this, and if we make the one on the right bigger and heavier, it looks out of balance. We look at that and say, that's going to collapse. Let's look at this picture now. Very interesting thing here. Balance is not always something that is scientific. This has to do with line of sight. We look at the woman in this picture and we give her room to look. She's looking to our left, her right, and there is more space on the left than the right. If we take and move her about the same position, that looks out of balance to us. It's a psychological balance, not necessarily a visual balance. Let's look at perspective. We looked at that quite a bit. And this is a photograph. Didn't have photography when Brunelleschi started looking at this, but we can look at this and we can see that the sidewalk here is, a concrete sidewalk. We don't expect it to get narrower as it gets farther away from us. It gets narrower at the top because as it gets farther away, it looks smaller. Things that are farther away from us appear smaller. We've got a guy standing in that sidewalk at the top, and let's see what happens when we take him and move him down here. Too small, huh? Up there at the top, he looks probably what we would consider to be a normal sized person. But when we take and bring the same size person and put them in the front here, we know there's something wrong. We expect to see him like that when he's up close. Things closer to us appear larger, and the same is for the distance from the left side of the sidewalk to the right side. If we put lines on that, it looks like that. Those are the lines of parallel lines that recede and meet at the horizon, the vanishing point it's called. Let's look at what Richard Fall does with this. One of the things he does is he plays tricks on us. This road is the same way. It gets narrower at the top, but he does something else. He takes these orange balls and puts the largest one at the top. And you go, wait a minute now. That's the same thing as the little guy. If we move a larger ball at the top, it makes the picture look flatter. It also maps out perspective for us in a scene right here, where the lines in the sand we can fill in the implied line going out to that rock as part of the vanishing point of perspective. Kind of a type of thing, again, that makes us think, not so much something that's supposed to be pretty. Another thing they talked about a lot in that video for the Masters of Illusion is chiaroscuro. We have a ball that's representing that. We have the highlight. We have the core shadow. We have reflected light down here. We have the cast shadow and a transition that goes smoothly from that part to that part. Now, that's a drawing I made in Photoshop. You don't have to have a drawing, though, to see that. this photograph pretty much shows us the same thing. On the egg, instead of a ball, we have the cast shadow, we have the highlight, we have the core shadow, the reflected light. All of that appears naturally. Of course, during the Renaissance, the artists had to observe that themselves. They didn't have photography to capture that and let them see what's going on. We have in this picture something a little more complex. It's still there, those ideas, but we have different surfaces now. We have a shiny chrome surface on the left, a clear, transparent one in the middle, and a translucent one on the right side. Those are other things that artists consider when giving us illusions. Again, just like Magritte wanted us to do, keep in mind that they are illusions. That's not a beach in Georgia, and those balls aren't floating there. You probably didn't expect that at all. Maybe you didn't expect the dog in that picture. Anyway, if you have any questions over any of that, that's in general what I wanted to cover from this past week. Very well done. Thank you for your participation in the discussions. Let me know your questions. And do take the time to study the quizzes. They will be used to create the quizzes that count for your grade.